Hello, everyone. This is Wade Yancey, L2 support engineer for our IBM Netcool Italy support. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, this question and answer session is going to be about the historical gateways. So we'll go ahead and go through a few quick, brief slides and then open up for any kind of questions everyone may have. I figure there are always historical gateway tickets out there and probably plenty of questions, so feel free to ask whatever you want. And myself and Christine, and I believe Phil Mom might be on the call as well, we'll try our best to answer the questions. So the first slide here is our agenda for the day. Is just a very quick overview, which is telling the gateway types, the system requirements for a new installation, and the differences between audit and reporter mode, and then we'll go ahead and have a question and answer session. Okay, first the overview. You'd have an object server, you'd have a database, and between the two you'd have your historical gateway. We have the Oracle gateway, the JDBC gateway, and the ODBC gateway. Okay, the gateway types. The Oracle gateway supports a connection to the Oracle databases. Your JDBC gateway, which is the latest and greatest, supports connections to the following databases: the DB2 LUW, DB2 ZOS Informex, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, Sybase, and Netezza. And the ODBC gateway is no longer available and has been replaced by the JDBC gateway. On the next slide, we have the system requirements. I'm not going to go too deep into this. All of this can be found in the docs. Have the requirements for Oracle and JDBC. The one thing, again, that I wanted to touch on is there are no system requirements for the ODBC gateway. It's no longer available. You couldn't go to the site and get it, so that's why that's not listed here. Again, you'd go to the JDBC gateway, and the requirements are listed there, and they are listed in the docs as well. On the next slide, we have just a few things on the differences between audit and reporter mode. Audit mode and reporter mode have different database schemas, so you couldn't just have your gateway up and running connecting to an audit schema and change it to a reporter gateway. You would need to change the schema as well. Audit mode treats everything as a new insert, so anything, an update, insert, delete, anything that's moved across that gateway into the database will be a new row. Audit mode supports all the target databases, and in reporter mode, you'll see at the bottom there, reporter mode supports all the target databases except MySQL and Netezza, and just above that, you'll see reporter mode does deduplication much like the object server. So in that case, if you had a tally of 2 in your object server, you should have a tally of 2 with 1 row in your database. Versus audit mode, you'd have 2 separate rows. And at this point, those were the brief slides. I'd like to open it up to any kind of questions anyone has about any of the gateways.
If you have any questions, you can type them into the text chat, or to unmute your line if you're on the bridge, press *6. I did want to mention that the ODBC gateway is no longer available for download. It is end of marketing, but it is still supported. We don't have a date when the ODBC and Oracle gateways will not be supported, but any new deployments are suggested to use the JDBC gateway instead. I have a ping in the chat. I am being told by IBM support that the NCOG Oracle Gateway is being phased out. The Oracle Gateway, it is still supported and it is still available for download now. However, it is going to eventually be phased out and be replaced with the JDBC Gateway. We don't have a date for when that will be.
And that being the case, if you were thinking of installing something new, go with the JDBC Gateway over the Oracle Gateway.
Another question in the chat, is there a recommended mode, reporter versus audit?
That would be pretty much a decision you'd want to make. Well, I guess if you were using NOI, I believe the new the reporting gateway comes with that, and you have to use the reporting gateway, so that could make your decision for you. But if not, it all kind of depends on what you want to have set up. Do you want it to look like your object server, or do you want a new row for everything? A new row for everything is going to have a bigger database as well. So that's, unless Christina has some sort of suggestions, that's kind of up to how you guys want to set things up.
Yes, it really depends on the business requirements. The reporter mode creates one row in the database for each event, so it doesn't record all changes to that event over time. So if you have a requirement that you need to see the changes to multiple fields that are in the object server, then you might need to run an audit mode. However, the reporting packages for Tivoli Common Reporting and also Netco Operations Insight rely on using the gateway in reporter mode. So if you're planning on using Tivoli Common Reporting reports, or if you're planning on using Netco Operation Insight and using Operations Analytics to view the event database, then you would need to have an event database in reporter mode.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, this is Philip from L2 Support, and it also would be good to know that the reporter mode is very much like the object server, how it deals with data. Audit mode, every single insert, update would be a new record, so it's not like the object server. So if you like your data kind of like the object server, it would be reporter mode.
One question that I get sometimes is if you upgrade the Oracle or ODBC gateway to the JDBC gateway, do you need to recreate the database tables?
And the answer to that would be no. No database schema changes if you're just upgrading. Now, if you're switching modes as well, that would be different.
So from, say, upgrading from version 7 to version 8 of Oracle, to Netco, has the reporter schema been updated to have more features within the reporter database, more audit tables or different triggers, perhaps?
It is still the same. If you're running a very old database back from the 3X days, some of the primary keys on the table have changed over time. So you might want to look at your database and review the primary keys. The latest scripts have different primary keys which offer better performance. It's not that the data wouldn't be written, it would just perform slower. But the overall schema, the tables that are there, the reporter audit tables, the fields that are there are still the same. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
There's another question in the chat. Does the JDBC Gateway allow inserts to multiple tables? And yes, it does. The ODBC and Oracle gateways are very limited in how they could transfer custom tables, but the JDBC Gateway does that better, and it allows you to do inserts to custom tables, not just the alerts tables. There's another question in the chat. Is there a recommended architecture to have both audit and reporter? Audit for, say, 90 days for regulation compliance, but reporter for 2 years with deduplication for managing size for business insight.
So in that case, you'd probably want to run 2 different gateways running into 2 different instances. In which case, one of the instances would be your audit schema, and you'd have your DBA set it up so that you did your maintenance every 90 days. And for the reporter instance, you'd do it for every 2 years.
Yes, there isn't really a recommended architecture. Typically, you could connect both gateways to your aggregate layer, and they would connect to the virtual primary and backup object servers. There's another question in the chat. Does the JDBC Gateway support automatic failover? And yes, it does. You can connect the JDBC Gateway to a virtual object server, and it will do automatic failover between a primary and backup object server. There is also a high availability configuration for the JDBC Gateway where you can have a what's called a cold standby. So you have one instance of a JDBC Gateway running at a time, and then you have a backup JDBC Gateway that is typically shut down. But when the primary JDBC Gateway stops, the backup gateway has scripts that are executed that will automatically start it up. I'll put a link to that in the text chat here that's on our DeveloperWorks Best Practice Wiki.
So one of the things we've seen is when restarting at least the Oracle gateway, after fixing some issues or network connectivity problems, we get a lot of constraint errors within the log. Like it's trying to insert the same data again.
That is normal when you're restarting a historical gateway usually, because it's going to try and read everything from the object server. And a lot of that's probably already in the database. And each thing it finds in the object server that's already in the database, it's going to try and insert it, and it's going to produce that error. After the gateway's been running for a little bit and it's gone through all the events in the object server, that should obviously go away.
Okay, thank you. That confirms what I was thinking. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and if it doesn't go away, you'd want to open a ticket with us to see why.
Yeah, it goes away. Thanks.
Okay.
Another question in the chat. Does the JDBC Gateway provide more detailed logs than the Oracle gateways? And it does, yes. The JDBC Gateway has an option to log the SQL that it is sending to the database, so that it can log the exact SQL command that it's sending. It sends it on two different lines. It will log the statement first, and then it will log the data that it's sending across. The JDBC Gateway also logs different statistics data. So if you grep the log for the word stat, it will show you the statistics for the JDBC Gateway, and it will log a running row rate, which is the number of rows per second that it has been writing to the database. Another question, has the JDBC Gateway been tested to ensure it works with database clusters, i.e. Oracle RAC, DB2 HADR, Veritas, and etc.? It has not been officially tested. However, I do have a customer that has implemented it with DB2 HADR, and I have seen some customers use it with Oracle RAC using a different configuration in the URL. It really relies on the driver being able to support the automatic failover in that case. There is no extra configuration in the JDBC Gateway. Okay, we have a question about the socket gateway. We would like to limit the number of updates being sent to ServiceNow. Is that only controlled by disabling replicate update in the socket reader table rep.def, or can you add on insert only in the map file to allow fewer updates? So the mapping file controls what columns are sent over, what fields are sent. So you could add on insert only in the map file if you are interested in sending all fields on update. But there would still be the same number of updates sent across. It would just be less data within those updates, less columns. In the table replication definition file, you could specify not to replicate updates. However, it would probably be better to use a filter. And the reason is that if you're already using a filter in the socket gateway and you remove the replicate update, it actually probably will not send any data across because the updates come across to match the filter, and then it has to send that as an insert to what it's connecting to. So if you want to limit the number of updates, it would probably be better to use like an after IDUC command in the table replication definition file, so you could temporarily change the event to not match the gateway filter. And then you could control through triggers or through other methods. If you wanted an update to be sent across, you could update the event to match that filter again so that that update would be sent. Does that answer your question? Okay. Another question that I get about the JDBC Gateway is the performance better? And I did want to mention that the Oracle and ODBC gateways, they are multi-threaded, so they could keep 6 connections typically to the database, and they'll have a different connection for inserts into alerts.status. They'll have another connection for updates into alerts.status, and another connection for deletes from alerts.status. The JDBC Gateway does perform better because it's configurable on the connections, and it uses a thread pool, So it doesn't have one connection that is limited to just inserts on alerts.status. All of its connections can be used for sending any data across. And there's a connections property, which is configurable. The default is 3 connections, but you can increase that. If you do increase it, we also recommend increasing the memory used by the gateway by increasing the Java heap size.
I just want to say that the gateway for 8.1 and 7X are both identical. There is no difference in binary. I'm not sure if you guys knew that or not.
64-bit?
I believe it's still 32-bit. Because I remember running into problems with people who downloaded the 64-bit driver. Christina, can you confirm?
The ODBC and Oracle gateways are 32-bit. I am not sure about the JDBC gateway. I know that it does support 64-bit Java, but I don't know if the process itself would still be 32-bit or not.
Okay. It just makes it easier. I mean, a lot of things that go in 64, and when you have to load the libraries for 32 and 64, both of them, your footprint gets bigger, and then you have to worry about extra loading of things.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still 32, just because we're kind of like between the fences. We still have to support 7X, and we still have, we're going to start supporting 8X, and so on. So we're, kind of like on the fence on this, and that's why I believe it is still 32-bit. We could check with L3 to confirm, but I'm almost certain, because I had a customer who installed a 64-bit driver and it didn't work.
Right. Okay. No reason for asking. I mean, I'm sure the data set would have to be huge if you're going to take advantage of the 64, but, just for management and maintenance of the things that need to be installed was the only reason for the question.
I also wanted to mention that there is a YouTube channel we have that has some videos about different aspects of the gateways. I know there's creating the database, configuring the gateway, and installing the gateway on 8.1. And we will go ahead and post the links to these in the chat. I know it can be very helpful to actually see an example versus reading about it.
Okay, are there any more questions? Okay, well, if there's no more questions, thank you for joining, everyone.